Most people still think India only builds cheap commuter motorcycles, small engines, basic designs. Nothing that belongs in the same conversation as global performance machines. That belief sounds normal, until you actually look at what has been happening quietly inside the industry for years, because while the world kept repeating the same assumption, Indian manufacturers were doing something very different. Not loud, not flashy, but consistent. Engine by engine, platform by platform, collaboration by collaboration, motorcycles started appearing that could tour across continents. Engines that were co-developed with European engineering teams. Bikes that were reviewed alongside Japanese performance machines without being dismissed immediately. And in some cases, motorcycles that forced global brands to rethink pricing, value, and even identity. And once you see the full picture, it becomes difficult to ignore. 12 motorcycles. 12 different stories. One quiet shift in global perception. Let's begin. Number 12 is the Bajaj Avenger Cruise 2.0. At first glance, nothing about it feels aggressive or exciting. It doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't ask for attention. It just exists in a very calm, almost invisible way. But that is exactly why it matters. Because this motorcycle was never designed for performance headlines. It was designed for something far more practical. Endurance comfort on real roads, not perfect highways, not controlled environments. Real roads. The kind that stretch for hours without relief. The kind that test your body more than your speed. So instead of chasing power, engineers focused on fatigue, a low seat that reduces strain, a relaxed riding position that keeps the body stable over long distances, suspension tuned not for sportiness, but for absorption. Every decision points in one direction. Keep the rider comfortable as long as possible. It doesn't excite you. It supports you. And in markets where riding often means long distances through unpredictable conditions, that purpose alone gives it value most people underestimate. But comfort is only the starting point, because the next motorcycle shifts the tone completely. Number 11 is the Hero Extreme 200. Hero is one of those companies that dominates in silence. By volume, it is among the largest motorcycle manufacturers in the world. But outside its core market, the name barely registers. The Extreme 2.0 was designed as a statement against that invisibility. On the surface, it looks like a sport-oriented machine. Sharp lines, digital console, aggressive stance. A design meant to suggest something more expensive than it actually is. But the real story is not in the styling. It is in what happens after ownership begins, because Hero built its reputation on one thing over decades. Mechanical reliability. Not luxury, not complexity, just long-lasting simplicity. And that DNA carried into this motorcycle. Riders consistently report high mileage durability with minimal maintenance requirements. No dramatic breakdown narratives. No complicated servicing cycles. Just predictable, steady performance over time. And in the motorcycle world, that kind of consistency doesn't create excitement. It creates trust. And trust is what slowly changes perception at scale. Now we move into something very different. Number 10 is the Jawa 42. This motorcycle is not about engineering first. It is about memory first. Jawa was once deeply connected to Indian roads decades ago. A brand tied to identity, nostalgia, and personal history. Then it disappeared. For years, it existed only in conversations between older riders who remembered it with unusual emotional weight. So when the brand returned, the reaction was not normal market behavior. It was emotional urgency. Bookings didn't rise slowly. They collapsed into demand instantly. Minutes after launch windows opened, allocations were gone. People placed deposits without ever physically interacting with the motorcycle. Waiting periods extended for months in a market where consumers usually expect fast delivery cycles. That kind of reaction cannot be explained through specifications. It comes from emotion. And what Jawa demonstrated is something most global manufacturers underestimate. That motorcycles are not always rational purchases. Sometimes they are emotional. RECONNECTIONS. Now the tone shifts again. Number 9 is the Mahindra Mojo. A company better known for tractors and utility vehicles decided to enter the touring motorcycle segment. At first, The industry didn't take it seriously, but underneath that skepticism, something unusual was happening. Mahindra partnered with international design influence and focused on a very specific engineering goal. Long-distance stability, not speed bursts, not aggressive riding, sustained highway performance. So the engine was tuned for smooth delivery rather than sharp response. Vibrations were reduced. Cruising stability was prioritized. The motorcycle was built to stay calm over long distances, and in real-world riding, that matters more than people assume, because long journeys are not defined by acceleration. They are defined by comfort that doesn't degrade over time. The Mojo delivered that quietly, but it struggled in a different area. Visibility. Marketing didn't match engineering strength, and because of that gap, the motorcycle never reached the recognition it could have achieved. Which is why it remains one of the most underrated machines in its segment. Now, things get more technical. Number 8 is the TVS Apache RR310. This is where the narrative changes from underrated engineering to serious collaboration, because this motorcycle was not developed alone. It was co-developed with BMW Motorrad, not loosely inspired, not indirectly influenced, co-developed. That detail alone changes everything. German performance engineering company working directly with an Indian manufacturer on a shared platform signals something important. Trust in capability. Their 310 reflects that partnership clearly. Aerodynamic focus. Track-oriented ergonomics. A high-revving engine designed for controlled performance rather than raw aggression. But what stood out most to riders was not speed. It was predictability under pressure, cornering stability, mid-speed control, consistency when pushed. These are characteristics that matter deeply in performance environments, and TVS engineered them with precision, which is why this motorcycle earned respect not just locally, but internationally among riders who understand what balance really means in performance design. Now we enter a category that surprises most people. Number 7 is the KTM 390 Duke. On the surface, it appears to be an Austrian performance motorcycle. The branding supports that perception. The styling reinforces it, but the reality is more complex. A significant portion of its engineering, production, and development ecosystem is rooted in India through Bajaj's manufacturing and design involvement. This is not simple assembly. This is shared engineering responsibility. The result is a motorcycle that feels aggressive, sharp, and deliberately demanding. It is not designed to be forgiving. It is designed to respond. And that's why it gained global attention. Because it delivers performance characteristics that feel premium, at a price point that disrupts expectations. But the hidden shift is perception. In many international markets, riders experience this motorcycle without realizing the depth of Indian engineering involvement behind it. And that disconnect is quietly changing how manufacturing geography is understood. Now we move into accessibility. Number 6 is the Bajaj Dominar 400. This motorcycle was built with a very clear idea. Make long-distance touring achievable without financial pressure. It is not a racing machine. It is not a luxury product. It is a functional touring platform. Engine tuning focuses on mid-range torque and sustained cruising ability. Stability is prioritized over aggression. Comfort is integrated into its geometry. And this combination changed behavior. Riders began taking long-distance trips that were previously reserved for expensive touring motorcycles. Cross-country journeys, multi-day highway rides, extended exploration routes. All on a machine that did not require premium investment. That shift matters more than specifications, because it redefined access. Now the tone sharpens. Number 5 is the Bajaj Pulsar NS200. This motorcycle represents a psychological shift in the market. Before its arrival, performance was something associated with imported machines. Expensive, foreign, out of reach for most riders. Then the NS200 changed that assumption. It introduced aggressive styling, performance-oriented engineering, and a riding experience that felt significantly more serious than its category suggested. But the real impact was not mechanical. It was mental. It proved that performance could be built domestically. That excitement didn't need to be imported. And that change influenced an entire generation of riders. Now, we move into global integration. Number 4 is the Yamaha R15, a small motorcycle with an oversized impact. While many see it as an entry-level sport bike, its engineering evolution tells a deeper story. Advanced performance tuning, high-revving engine design, and race-inspired chassis development made it a benchmark in its category. But the important shift is structural. India became part of its development and refinement cycle over time, contributing to iterations that were later exported to international markets. That means motorcycles shaped through Indian riding conditions were being sold globally, competing not as localized products, but as global performance machines. Now the intensity increases. Number 3 is the Royal Enfield Himalayan. This motorcycle was never designed for showroom appeal. It was designed for survival, rough terrain, remote regions, broken infrastructure, environments where failure is not an inconvenience but a serious risk. So complexity was avoided, simplicity was embraced. Long travel suspension, minimal electronics, easy to repair mechanics. And that simplicity became its global strength, because riders operating in remote regions discovered something essential. Reliability is not about sophistication, it is about serviceability. And the Himalayan delivered exactly that. Now only to remain. Number 2 is the Royal Enfield Continental GT 650. Motorcycle built around heritage rather than trend. Classic cafe racer inspiration, twin-cylinder refinement, a riding experience designed around emotion instead of numbers. And something unexpected happened. International motorcycle communities began acknowledging it not as a budget alternative, but as a genuine preference. Riders in countries where cafe racer culture originated started choosing it willingly. That kind of acceptance cannot be manufactured through marketing. It comes from experience. And finally, number 1 is the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. This motorcycle represents a turning point in perception, a completely new parallel twin platform developed with global engineering, collaboration, and manufactured at scale in India. When it launched, pricing disrupted expectations immediately. But what followed was more important. Performance reviews did not treat it as a budget compromise. They treated it as a legitimate competitor against Triumph, against Kawasaki, against Yamaha. And it held its position. That outcome changed something fundamental. It moved the conversation away from origin and toward capability. Because when a machine can compete directly at that level, geography stops being the defining factor. Capability becomes the defining factor. And that is the real transformation behind this entire list. Not just motorcycles, but perception. Because while the world continued to assume made in India meant only affordability, the industry had already moved into something far more significant. Competition, confidence, and global relevance. 12 motorcycles, wealth, different machines. 1 silent shift that most people didn't notice until it was already complete. And the only question left is this: what happens next, when the next generation of machines arrives even stronger than the last?